All right, welcome. Today, we're digging into the architecture of focus. We're going to connect two huge ideas, the science of our habits and the incredible power of deep work, to give you a real blueprint for getting amazing things done, especially in a world that is practically begging to distract you. But before we get into all that, let me ask you something. Just think about your day so far. You know, from the moment you got out of bed, to brushing your teeth, that first glance at your phone, the route you took to work. How much of that did you actually consciously decide to do? You might be pretty surprised by the answer. A study from Duke University found that a staggering 40% or even more of the things we do every single day aren't really decisions at all. They're habits. That means for almost half of your day, you're running on autopilot. Now that might sound kind of scary, right? Like you're not in control. But it's actually the exact opposite. This is a hidden superpower. Because if you can figure out how to build and direct those automatic routines, well, you can literally architect a life of incredible focus and achievement. Okay, so let's dive into this whole autopilot thing. See, our brain's tendency to form habits isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's this brilliant, energy-saving mechanism that keeps us from being totally overwhelmed by the thousands of tiny decisions we have to make every day. And maybe the most incredible proof of this comes from the story of a man named Eugene Pauly. A viral infection basically wiped his memory clean. He couldn't remember his doctor, he couldn't even find the kitchen in his own house. And yet, his wife started taking him on the same walk around the block every day. And one morning, he just found his way home by himself. He had zero conscious memory of the route, but his brain had forged habit. It proves that habits live somewhere else, somewhere deeper and more fundamental in our minds. So, if habits are that powerful, how in the world do they actually work? Well, scientists at MIT figured it out. They cracked the code, and it turns out there's this simple, elegant little loop happening in our brains for every single habit we have. They call it the habit loop. It's this process where the brain takes a sequence of actions and basically bundles it together into an automatic routine. This process is called chunking. It's the whole reason you can back your car out of the driveway while you're thinking about your grocery list. Your brain has chunked that whole complex behavior and handed it off to the autopilot system. And this loop breaks down into three really simple parts. First, you've got the cue. That's the trigger, the thing that tells your brain, hey, run this program. Then you've got the routine, which is the action itself, the behavior. And finally, there's the reward. This is the good part that tells your brain, hey, that was worth it. Let's remember this loop for next time. Just how powerful is this loop? Well, it can create a national obsession. Back in the early 1900s, almost nobody brushed their teeth. Only 7% of Americans did. Then, this brilliant ad man named Claude Hopkins comes along. He creates a campaign for Pepsodent toothpaste. He gave people a cue, that film you can feel on your teeth. He offered a dead simple routine, brush with Pepsodent. And he defined a fantastic reward, that beautiful, tingly, clean feeling. In just a decade, an entire country learned a new habit. It was a game changer. But here's the catch. In our world today, that powerful habit loop is constantly being hijacked. We're surrounded by cues, the pings, the notifications, the little red dots, that trigger routines of constant distraction, pulling us into what the author Cal Newport calls a state of shallowness.
So Newport draws this really important line in the sand between two kinds of work. On one side, you have shallow work. This is the stuff we do while we're distracted, it's low value, it's easy for someone else to do, than constantly checking email or scrolling through feeds. But on the other side, you have deep work. This is when you're in a state of pure, distraction-free concentration, pushing your brain to its limits. And that is where real, high-value stuff gets created.
The author Neal Stephenson just nails this trade-off. He's famously hard to get a hold of, and here's why. He says that when his life is full of long, uninterrupted blocks of time, he writes novels. But when his life is full of constant interruptions, all he produces is a big pile of emails. So what's the antidote to this epidemic of shallowness? Well, you guessed it. It's deliberately, intentionally cultivating the ability to do deep work. And this isn't just some nice little productivity hack. It is rapidly becoming the defining skill of the 21st century. And if you look back, history is just filled with brilliant people who understood this. Think about it. Mark Twain, writing in a shed so isolated, his family had to blow a horn to call him for dinner. Woody Allen, to this day, using a manual typewriter. Carl Jung, building a stone tower with no electricity. Or Bill Gates and his legendary Think Weeks, where he just disappears to read and think. They all designed their lives to protect this deep, uninterrupted focus. Look, in an economy where more and more shallow tasks are just going to be done by AI, the ability to go deep is becoming incredibly rare. And because it's rare, it is becoming ridiculously valuable. It's the skill that lets you learn complicated things fast and produce work at an absolutely elite level.
Okay, so this is where it all comes together. This is the big idea. We know habits are powerful, right? And we know deep work is essential. So the secret, the real key, is to use the science of habits to build a habit of deep focus. We're going to rewire our brains for it.
And it all starts with what's known as the golden rule of habit change. And it's super simple. You can't just extinguish a bad habit, you have to change it. You keep the old cue, you keep the same reward, but you consciously swap in a new routine.
So, how do you actually do this? Let's walk through it. First, you have to identify the cue. What's the thing that triggers your distraction? What happens right before you instinctively reach for your phone? Is it finishing a tough task? A moment of boredom? Okay, once you know the cue, you change the routine. So instead of opening Twitter or checking your email, you start a pre-planned 20-minute deep work session. And, this is crucial, you still get a reward. You acknowledge the progress you made, and then you can enjoy a totally guilt-free break. You're teaching your brain that focus, not distraction, leads to the good stuff.
This is all about applying the famous 80-20 rule to your attention. A tiny fraction of your activities, that 20% of deep work, is going to generate 80% of your results. The goal isn't to get rid of all shallow work. That's impossible. The goal is to be absolutely ruthless about protecting the time and energy for that vital, high-impact 20%.
And you know, maybe the most important takeaway here isn't even about productivity. The science writer Winifred Gallagher, after a cancer diagnosis, discovered something profound. Our brains literally construct our worldview based on what we choose to pay attention to. If you spend your day focused on fragmented, shallow distractions, your life will feel fragmented and shallow. But if you fill it with deep, meaningful focus, your life will feel deep and meaningful.
Gallagher put it perfectly. She said, "I'll live the focused life because it's the best kind there is. A deep life is a good life. It's where you find that amazing intersection of professional success and just genuine personal fulfillment."
So the question I want to leave you with isn't really about your to-do list. It's about what truly matters to you. What novel, what project, what skill, what relationship, what legacy are you going to build with the focus that you reclaim?